Who authorized that aircraft to take off? Lock target immediately. Above the restricted airspace, an unidentified aircraft was being surrounded by 4 F-22 Raptors. The lead pilot was about to issue the final warning, when from the radio, a trembling voice cut through. "Wait, I know that maneuver. That's Red Falcon." The entire frequency fell silent. Main character, call sign Red Falcon, real name classified in current records. Former tactical pilot specialized in radar dead zones from 2010 to 2014. Listed as missing in action during a mission with Shadow Wing, an unofficial squadron under Special Operations Command. She lived under a different identity, working as an aircraft maintenance engineer at a training airbase. One day, she was assigned to service an old X-29C experimental aircraft. No one else dared to test fly it because the systems were still unstable. She proposed taking it up for a test flight, but the duty officer said, "Test flight? Who do you think you are? A pilot? We don't hand over flight controls to maintenance technicians here." She didn't react. She simply said, "If it fails mid-flight, I'm the only one who knows exactly where it's broken." The officer scoffed. "Regulations are regulations. Find someone else to dream about flying." She nodded quietly and walked back to her workstation. But deep down, she knew something they didn't. The X-29C wasn't just any aircraft. It was a prototype she had helped design during her Shadow Wing days. Every bolt, every wire, every system response was burned into her memory. That evening, she stayed late in the hangar, running diagnostics, checking flight controls. The aircraft was airworthy, but barely. It needed someone who understood its quirks, its limitations, its unique flight characteristics. The next morning brought an emergency weather alert. A training squadron was still airborne, flying directly into an incoming storm system. The base needed someone to take the X-29C up immediately to provide navigation assistance. No one volunteered. She looked around the briefing room, young pilots shaking their heads, senior officers making excuses about the aircraft's unreliability. She stood up quietly. "I'll take it." The room erupted in protests. "You're not qualified. It's against protocol. You're just maintenance." But the base commander, desperate and running out of options, looked at her differently, something in her eyes, the way she carried herself, the confidence in her voice. "Can you handle it?" "Yes, sir." CTA comment Act 1. Have you ever seen someone being excluded from a position they truly deserved? Type, "I've seen it." The weather warning system showed an incoming storm. A training flight was still in the air, unable to return safely. The base needed someone to fly the X-29C to provide navigation guidance for the lost squadron. No one volunteered. She quietly stepped into the cockpit. When the aircraft took off, the control system didn't recognize the flight authorization code. Radar marked it as unidentified aircraft. Emergency protocol activated. F-22s from the neighboring base were scrambled to intercept. The sky split with supersonic thunder. An F-22 closed in, the pilot's voice crackling over the radio. "X-29C, you are not authorized in this airspace. Land immediately." She replied calmly, "Your boys are flying into a low-pressure zone. I'm guiding them out of the crosswinds." The F-22 pilot's tone hardened. "Negative. You will comply with direct orders. Reduce altitude and follow my lead to the nearest airfield." She ignored the command, banking left toward the storm coordinates where the training flight was struggling. On her radar, she could see 3 F-16s caught in severe turbulence, their formation scattered and communication breaking up. "Training Flight Bravo 7, this is emergency assistance. Turn heading 270 degrees. You're about to hit severe downdrafts." The F-16 flight leader responded with confusion. "Who is this? We didn't request assistance." "Just trust me. Bank left now. Descend to Angels 15. Another F-22 pilot was preparing to lock onto her aircraft when the squadron leader's voice cut through the chatter. "Hold on. The way she's avoiding those air currents. That's Red Falcon." The radio frequency suddenly went quiet. Even the F-16s stopped their distress calls. The lead F-22 pilot spoke slowly. "Say again? Did you say Red Falcon?" "Affirmative, I recognize that flight pattern. The way she's threading between those wind shears. Nobody flies like that except..." "Red Falcon was KIA 4 years ago? Well, she's sure as hell not dead now." Meanwhile, she continued guiding the lost F-16s through the turbulence, her voice steady and professional. Bravo 7. Maintain current heading. You'll clear the storm system in 90 seconds. The F-16 flight leader's voice came back, filled with awe. Unknown aircraft, your navigation is perfect. How did you know about that pressure gradient? She didn't answer directly. Instead, she executed a perfect barrel roll through a gap in the storm clouds that seemed impossible to navigate. The F-22 pilots watched in stunned silence as she demonstrated flight skills that defied conventional training. Control, this is Raptor 1, the lead F-22 pilot radioed back to base. We need to verify something. Pull up the classified files on Red Falcon, Shadow Wing Operations, 2010 to 2014. Raptor 1, those files are restricted. Pull them anyway. I need to know if Red Falcon had any connection to X-29C development. A long pause. Then, Raptor 1. Red Falcon was the primary test pilot for the X-29C program. She designed half the flight control systems. The F-22 formations slowly spread out, no longer in attack formation, but in escort formation. Red Falcon, this is Raptor 1. We're honored to fly with you. She transmitted back, her voice carrying years of hidden pain. Just help me get these kids home safe. CTA comment Act 2. Have you ever thought someone was ordinary until they took action? Type, I never expected it. After successfully guiding the 3 F-16s out of the storm system, she piloted the X-29C back to base, landing with precision that was off by only 2 meters from her predicted touchdown point. This, while the HUD system was still showing multiple error warnings. In the command center, officers were frantically pulling up the classified files on Red Falcon. The legend they found was more extraordinary than anyone had imagined. Red Falcon wasn't just another pilot. She was a ghost, never appeared on official rosters, never received public recognition, but her flight logs told a different story. 17 consecutive successful missions over 2 years, rescues that saved hundreds of lives, tactical operations that prevented international incidents. An old video file showed her executing a reverse spiral maneuver through crosswinds, exactly the same technique she had just used to avoid the F-22 lock-on. Colonel Hunter, the regional air command officer, was waiting on the tarmac when she climbed out of the cockpit. The entire base had gathered. Ground crews, pilots, officers, maintenance staff. Everyone stood in complete silence. She removed her helmet, revealing a face that most had seen every day for 3 years. The quiet maintenance engineer who fixed their aircraft, who worked late shifts without complaint, who never spoke about her past. Colonel Hunter stepped forward. His voice carried across the silent airfield. The entire Sky Ghost Squadron was listed as casualties, but Red Falcon was never confirmed dead. He paused, looking directly at her. You survived. She nodded quietly, then looked around at the faces staring at her. Young pilots who had dismissed her as just maintenance. Officers who had denied her request to test fly aircraft. Base personnel who had treated her as invisible. I didn't survive, she said, her voice carrying clearly in the still air. Red Falcon died with the rest of Shadow Wing. I'm just someone who knows how to fix airplanes. But Colonel Hunter wasn't finished. He had spent the last hour reviewing classified mission reports. Operation Ghost Dance, the Syrian incident, the rescue mission over the Pacific that was never officially acknowledged. You saved 43 lives during the Mediterranean crisis, he said. The cargo plane full of civilians that went down in international waters. You flew through a hurricane to guide the rescue ships to their location. She looked away. That was a team effort. You were the only pilot who could navigate those conditions. The rest of us would have died trying. A young pilot from the training squadron she had just rescued stepped forward. Lieutenant Morrison, barely 25 years old, still shaking from his experience in the storm. Ma'am, I don't understand. Why didn't you tell us? Why are you working maintenance when you could be commanding your own squadron? She looked at him for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was quiet but clear. Because when Shadow Wing failed, someone had to take responsibility. Someone had to disappear so the mission could be buried. I chose to let Red Falcon die so that 23 other families wouldn't have to lose their sons and daughters. The silence stretched across the airfield. Then, slowly, Colonel Hunter raised his hand in a salute. One by one, Every person on the tarmac followed suit. Pilots, ground crew, officers, even the maintenance staff she had worked alongside for 3 years. She didn't return the salute. Instead, she walked toward the hangar where her tools were waiting. She had aircraft to repair. But as she passed Lieutenant Morrison, she paused. The X-29C needs its port engine recalibrated. The fuel mixture was running rich during the flight. Can you handle that? He nodded eagerly. Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. Good. And Morrison? Yes, ma'am. Practice your storm navigation. Weather doesn't care about your rank or your reputation. It only cares whether you know how to fly. She continued toward the hangar, leaving behind a group of people who would never look at her the same way again. CTA Comment Act 3. If you've ever owed someone recognition that came too late, write, I'm grateful. She didn't accept reinstatement to her former rank. She refused all media interviews. When Colonel Hunter offered her command of a new training squadron, she declined politely. I'm not coming back, she said. I just didn't want those young pilots to die because I stayed silent. But something had changed at the base. The young pilots started practicing a new maneuver, the storm navigation technique she had demonstrated. They called it the Red Falcon maneuver. Lieutenant Morrison became her unofficial student, spending hours in the hangar learning not just about aircraft maintenance, but about the intuitive understanding of flight that separated good pilots from legendary ones. One evening, as she was closing up the hangar, a group of new recruits approached her. The youngest, barely 18, asked the question that had been on everyone's mind. Why did you disappear for so many years? She looked at them, fresh faces, eager eyes, dreams of glory and recognition. She remembered being that young once. Because when a mission fails, someone has to take responsibility. I chose to let my name disappear rather than let anyone else carry the blame. The recruits exchanged glances. One of them, a young woman with pilot wings freshly pinned to her uniform, stepped forward. But wasn't that unfair? You saved all those people. You deserved recognition. She smiled, the first genuine smile anyone at the base had seen from her. Recognition isn't why you fly. You fly because someone needs to come home safe. Everything else is just noise. She picked up her toolbox and headed for the exit. As she walked across the tarmac, every person she passed stood a little straighter. Not because of her rank or her reputation, but because of something simpler: respect. The next morning, she found a note on her workbench. It was from the entire training squadron. Thank you for teaching us that heroes don't need their names in the history books. They just need to be there when it matters. She folded the note carefully and put it in her pocket. Then she got back to work, preparing the next generation of pilots for the storms they would face. Some heroes get parades, some get medals, some get their names carved in stone, and some get something better. They get to see the people they saved go on to save others. CTA Comment Act 4. Type, I'll live with honor. If you believe that true heroes don't need anyone to call their names. She had been forgotten, misnamed, listed as missing in action. But one flight maneuver, one wordless signature, made a pilot recognize the truth. Not everyone needs to be on magazine covers. Some people only need one perfect moment and the right person to remember them, to make history. Next time you see someone quietly doing what's right, don't ask if they have permission. They might be someone who saved more lives than you'll ever meet. The greatest heroes aren't the ones who seek glory. They're the ones who step up when everyone else steps back. They're the ones who take responsibility instead of taking credit. They're the ones who let their names disappear so others can live. Red Falcon taught us that sometimes the most important thing you can do is show up when no one expects you to. And sometimes the most heroic thing you can do is walk away when everyone wants you to stay. Remember that. The next time you're tempted to stay quiet when someone needs help. The next time you think your contribution doesn't matter, it does. Even if no one ever knows your name.